After almost 7 years of court battles surrounding the takeover of the Belize Telemedia Limited, the government of Belize is now better informed on just how much money they will need to settle and close this matter. Early last month, a preliminary report was published by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in the Netherlands, and from then it was reported that the estimate per share that the Ashcroft Alliance was stating would not be honored. Prime Minister Dean Barrow gave the details of the arbitration award.
Preliminarily, this is what the figures look like. The total number of shares we acquired was 45,199,961. The per share award given by the tribunal is $5.6547 Belize. This is as opposed to the $10.23 Belize that the former owners claimed, so that on the face of it, the difference between that 5.6547 and the 1023 represents a win for the government. Further, of the 5.6547 valuation by the arbitration tribunal, only $2.2674, or 40%, is actually for the shares. So that $3.3873, or 60% of the so-called per share value, is actually compensation for the accommodation agreement. When we subtract the down payment of $65,087,944 Belize that we had already made on the award, the balance that remains to be paid is, by our calculation, 191 million Belize dollars. A balance of 191 million Belize dollars. Of that, then, fully 114.6 million Belize dollars is for the accommodation agreement, and it is only the rest of that 191 that is for the actual shares acquisition. Now, there is also interest that we will have to pay on that amount of 191 million Belize. The interest is also divided in the portion of 40% attributable to the actual nationalization of the shares and 60% to the accommodation agreement. So it follows the split with respect to the principal.
The figures are pretty steep, as Prime Minister Barrow announced, but according to him, the government is able to pay. He explained how.
The $2.26 Belize, $2.26 Belize, that government paid per share for our acquisition of BTL is a win in any ballpark. Recollect that in 2010, GOB was already able to sell a portion of those same shares for $5 each. And we're even now proposing to sell some more of the shares also at $5 per share. That is more than twice the panel's valuation of what the shares were worth in 2009 when we acquired them. Very simply, we believe we will have no difficulty, especially in view of the excess liquidity in the financial system, getting all the money locally by way of the issue of government paper, bills and notes. And the 40% that has to be converted into US and sent abroad will also be fairly comfortably covered by central bank reserves. Second, please remember that we are currently selling $55 million. I had $60 million here. There's another $5 million, but let me not deal with that for the minute, and let me limit it to $60 million worth of shares that we are selling in BL and BTL. Even after that, there will still be a little more headroom for selling additional shares in BL without, of course, ever breaching the threshold that requires us to maintain, together with SSB, the 51% majority ownership. So even after we sell the shares that we're currently selling in BL, there will be a little more headroom for some additional shares to be sold, and a lot more headroom for selling additional shares in BTL. We anticipate being able to raise at least another 75 million, possibly 100 if we go that way, so that the borrowing for the award would be greatly lessened as a result. But of course, we will need to decide whether it is not preferable to hold on to some of those shares and use the dividends, which we expect, as I said, to be extremely bountiful, use the dividends to service a more expanded GOB borrowing in order to meet the compensation payments.
And while government says they have it within their capacity to pay the award, and while government says that this is a victory for Belize, Prime Minister assured the public that there will be no stagnation of the economy due to the excess liquidity we have in the system. Prime Minister Barrow also made reference to the super bond and the accommodation agreement and how it has put a dent into the economy.
We can't be depriving the business sector, I won't even say productive sector, because there's not a whole lot of lending taking place to the productive sector. But Lord, man, that is why it is a good deal for SSB to buy shares. That is why so many of the institutional members of the financial system, the non-bank, the insurance companies and all these people are in fact dying for some way that they can make an investment and get some returns while satisfying the statutory requirements that they face. So there can be no question at all of us depriving anybody by resorting to the commercial borrowing. Now, the fact that it is more debt is, of course, consequential and something we can talk about. All I would say is this. Were it not for the accommodation agreement, this would have been an absolute breeze. Even with the accommodation agreement, were it not for the super bond, it would still have been a breeze. To the extent that we do have to keep an eye on things in terms of the debt trajectory, in terms of the drawdown on the reserves, I think the crunch is really going to come after there is the step up in the servicing of the super bond and when amortization begins. But we have to take things as we find them, but I think the people of this country must recollect that that is really where the most difficult, the most challenging, the most trying of our problems is with respect to the super bond, for which we got nothing. You're talking about what we're paying now, the 390 odd. Look what we get for it. What we don't collect, what we have, it is ours to keep forever, and it is something that it will be a gift to the Belizean people that keeps on giving, as opposed to the super bond. But let me not get on my soapbox.
According to the Financial Secretary, Joseph Waite, the total number of shares acquired is 45,199,961, broken down into two components with 34,199,000 107,117 shares from Dunkel International Investments Limited, and 11,092,844 shares from the BTL Employees Trust. The tribunal has valued each share at $5.65, thus making the gross figure $255.5 million Belize dollars. A part payment was done in the sum of $65 million last September, leaving a balance of $190 million to be paid on the shares. As it relates to the interest now, the total is about $388 million, and that does not factor in the legal cost and arbitration cost, which would bring it to $395 million. 40% of that amount is to be paid in U.S. currency, and the remaining 60% in Belize dollars. Waite says there may be some slight adjustments made to the figures due to the currency exchange and other factors.